I see your face on the subway, riding home on the train. I feel you move through the crowd. I hear you call out my name. I feel your sorrow, your anguish, your touch along the lines of my face. Feel your heartbeat. I feel your tears as I cry. I see you passing through windows. I feel you passing through the night. I have your pictures, your memories, your stories, all the truths and the lies. Stayed with you, I prayed for you, but nothing would keep you alive. Ooh, don't shy away, I will be fine. Let go, be your way, and I will be mine. Ooh, don't shy away, no, I won't be blind. Let go, don't look behind.
Held up in the highest esteem. When I talk to new acts, Wendy's usually one of the first 3 or 4 names off of my tongue. When I talk to bands about how do they present themselves on stage, how do they connect with an audience, how do they move merch. I've never seen anybody move merch like Wendy. Never. I've watched her for 15 years, and I've seen her do things. I've seen that merch table just get crushed.
Right?
Angels in the Crowd? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it was my first one, so I sold lots and lots of them. I remember getting my first performance at the People's Fair in 1998, and that's where I met some of my fans who still come see me play. And the line was, it was before the internet, so the line was unmanageable to sell to by myself. I was just cranking out CDs. My first album sold very well.
What's the perfect number of people to have in a band?
1. Just kidding. 6.
What happens as you add more?
It gets busier as you add more. there's more miscommunications and wrong notes, and if you've got one guitar player that's off by a fret, it's really out of tune. So, and when you have more people in the band, you need to have really big ears and really listen to where you fall in the music.
Tell me about Edwin.
Edwin Horowitz, funky bass player from Boston. Played in a band called Chakra.
Happened here at the Fox. I came in to see some band that was playing and was hanging out with Wendy at the front bar, and she was plying me with Long Island iced teas.
I need a bass player.
And
He needed a drink. I was all, let me make you my Long Island iced tea. and I said, I really just need someone to play these shows with me.
I said yes pretty much right away, and I have to point out at this point that she did not have to inebriate me to get that answer. I was very happy to play with her. I was excited to play with her and also to play with Paul, and I don't think she had the drummer settled at that point, but we played with Brian McRae a lot, and he was on the albums at that point.
Yeah, and I really asked Edwin to be. I was getting tired of having a different bass player. There was rehearsals where bass players would come and another bass player would leave, and drummers would come and go, and you'd never really play with the same rhythm section. And that was just freaking me out.
What makes you commit to a band rather than being a play for hire?
Well, there's a number of reasons why I personally would do that. One is to be able to feel more invested in the band and feel more like a part of it. And also to develop a better rapport with the other players. The musical scenarios that I came from prior to playing with Wendy were pretty much exclusively bands. I didn't really play too much for hire. In Boston, I did some wedding gigs and things like that here and there. But that was mostly prior to joining Chakra and was not something I really enjoyed all that much.
But if you have a good solid bass player and a good solid drummer, then you can kind of just add people after that.
I'm wide awake and dreaming. I'm wide awake and dreaming.
Say you've got 2 years to put out your second one. But a part of it too is that as that year or two goes by, you evolve and change. So you have an album out for 2 years, you're ready to put down something new because you want to show people how you've evolved. And when I look back on my discography, there's quite a bit of different styles per album. So not only do I have these albums that are chapters in my life every 2 years, but they stylistically change. And they're also based on kind of where I am in life and how my head is on my shoulders and how I'm doing.
With Paul and Edwin in the band at the time, we wanted to be a band. She wanted us to be a band. She didn't want to just be Wendy Woo. She wanted to have us all have kind of say in the music. And Wide Awake and Dreaming is kind of the product of that. There's a lot of different feels on the record. There's calypso tunes and New Orleans second line and jazz stuff that we all tried to contribute to writing that record with Woo. It was always Woo's songs, but it's just how we came up with a lot of the ways that we presented the material back then.
And I'd say if I had a favorite album, it might be Wide Awake and Dreaming.
My boyfriend, the keyboard player, and he was the producer on that album. And you can always hear whoever the producer is, their influence on it. So it's very heavy keyboards. But funky, jazz, great jazz chords that I don't normally play as a kind of a folk guitar player. I was just trying to play Wide Awake and Dreaming again, and how it's got these minor 13th chords. And I learned how to play it on the guitar, but it's never something I would write on the guitar.
It was interesting playing with Paul because he's a very jazz-oriented player. He's now gone on to playing in salsa bands, and he's a very deep musician, not only in terms of expressing his emotions, but also as a technical player.
I always tell people that was my jazz album. It got a lot of play on Denver's Kubo and got a lot of attention for being a jazz band from that album. Got a bunch of jazz gigs. those were rough. People were like, this isn't jazz. Because again, it started changing. So, but there was things like Sundrops is on there. And that was, Chris Meisner was a big writer in that, because he said, you know, this song is cool, G, C, and D, these basic chords, but let's add this calypso rhythm to it. And all of a sudden, Sundrops has become this kind of calypso dance song.
Wait till the sun drops. Wait till the night settles in. Wait till the storm reaches over and the stars come in. Wait till the heat drops. Wait till the darkness hides our secrets. Wait till the sun drops to the pocket.
So I'd taken a lesson in calypso music, Caribbean music, and I just kind of learned it, and I think through jamming out one day over at Woo's house, we came up with that song, just playing the beat and having her do her thing over it, and it was...
Wait till the day is over. Wait till the work bell rings. Wait till you're good and tired from a long day's of work, and then you'll catch my second wind. I will run to you. We will run ever when the sun.
I think that your most intimate relationship with a band member is with the drummer. And when Chris came in, he was like the kid. You know, he was like, we all sort of adopted him as a little brother. And, you know, he was somebody who didn't have a whole lot of experience, but he had a huge amount of spirit and was really psyched to learn all this stuff.
I felt when this album was done that I wasn't belting it. I couldn't wait to make my next rock album, which wasn't until, I think, 3 albums later was my next rock album or funk album. So I think I missed the funk aspect in Wide Awake and Dreaming. But I think it was strong in the songwriting sense. And I think each of the songs were really different because I had such collaborative keyboard players and drummer. My drummer was very very eclectic in his styles of what he was bringing to the table.
Yeah, well, no, we spent a lot of time. We were focused on the metronome. We were super serious. I mean, we were out to crush the world back then. I mean, at least I was. I lived every day for what we were doing, and I know that we were trying to really make something out of what we had then. And you know, when you're that young and you're not successful yet, you really are hungry, and we were super hungry then. I was young.
That song. I ran into a friend out on the streets today. We turned around and laughed about the way that things have changed. She said she had moved out to the city, and I told her I was still living in the mountains with my dog. And I'd say that line and everyone would go, "Woo, my dog!" I haven't played that one in a while either, and that's just about time passing. I thought about that song this morning because there's a line when you wake up and you're trying to get the blood to start moving through your fingers. And I woke up this morning doing this with my fingers, trying to get started.
It was a good record. We spent a lot of time on that record, and it was fun in the end.
So there was a problem with the band. And nobody really knew what the problem was, but there was a problem. And Paul said it was Chris. But I think that Paul was jealous of Chris, and I think that Chris is. I think that maybe Paul was jealous of Chris and I's dynamic. Chris Meisner is very funny, and so I thought we had a really nice dynamic between the two of us. He would chew his gum while he played to keep time, like this, and I remember my mother would be like, "You got to get rid of that gum." And I was like, "He can't play without it." I think that there was some jealousy maybe between Paul and Chris Meisner, and also Chris Meisner's girlfriend. I think that there was some jealousy going on, but neither Chris Meisner nor myself really thought about it until flash forward at the Fox Theater 20th anniversary, and I see him there, and he said, "I forgive you for firing me from the band, but I think it's because Paul was jealous." And that was kind of the first time I thought, well, that makes sense. Because Paul said Chris was the problem, and we got rid of Chris, and it was still the problem.
Being in a band with a couple, well, I should say that the two bands I was in with couples were Skin with Maya Dorn and Dave Watts as a couple, and then Wendy's band. And it's an interesting dynamic. When it works well, it can be a great dynamic, because I think that, people who are in a relationship like that have a certain sense of communication, and they have a way of bringing kind of an intimate vibe to the stage and to the songs that get presented. However, as you can imagine, when things aren't going so well, it puts you in an awkward position, because then you might be in a situation where you're called on to make a decision that could seem like you're supporting one side against the other side, and you just really don't want to get involved in that kind of politics.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's always band drama. I don't think it's something I want to air out. There's something between, one of band members. It didn't work out at the time. Everybody grows, and everybody regrets certain things. I'm not a regretter in this situation for once. Usually I'm the one that regrets what I say.
It was fun, and people would come, and people would dance. But I was always nervous, and I was always working it. I mean, I was at the bar handing away invitations and telling everybody, and so I was learning how to self-promote. I mean, before I was working at the bar, I was shy, so now I had this job at the bar where I was always trying to get people to come to my shows, and I don't know if I felt like the hottest thing at the time, but every so once in a while, we'd do a show, and everyone would show up, and everyone would get crazy and dance, and that's when you felt that you were right on.
Older, and I've talked about everything but Woo, but we were super good friends, and we still are. Obviously, I'm at your house on Sunday, drinking Jim Beam out of a Avengers cup. So, she made me comfortable. She really worked hard to make sure everybody was always happy and we were in the right direction. And, in the end, if it wasn't for Woo, we wouldn't have gotten together. I mean, we tried to be a band, but seeing hindsight now, it's good that she took control again of her own destiny and became Wendy Woo again instead of the Wendy Woo Band, which is what we were, and that she's followed her own path, and because she's stronger than all of us as individuals, as a front person. So it really was always her band and her thing.
Are you lost, are you lonely? Never been in love, but instead I'm gonna sit here and wonder what you're thinking of. Well, you seen me before, but you don't know my name. I've been trapped in the shadows and left in the rain. I wanna jump up and